Hello and welcome. You are watching slash listening to the Nightly Nintendo Show, a nightly podcast where every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night we discuss the latest Nintendo headlines, news, whatever you want to call it. We dive into the world of Mario and Zelda and look at what's going on. Of course, this show is live on those nights on Twitch. The Twitch channel is twitch.tv/nightly-nintendo, 4:30 on most days. On Wednesdays, it's at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. What that means is that you can join the conversation live and give me your thoughts or opinions on any of the stories that we discuss, and we can have a little back and forth if you so please. Otherwise, you can watch it after the fact. It's on YouTube. The YouTube channel is called Heart Containers. You should be able to just search Nightly Nintendo Show on YouTube and find it just like that. But if you're interested, you can watch it after the fact on YouTube or on podcasting services like iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. It's uploaded pretty much immediately after the live show completes. Today, we have a bunch of fun topics to talk about. Not as much Pokemon Sword and Shield news, but a little bit. We're going to be referencing some of the reasonable sides of the fan base, some really good takes, I think, that are going to calm people down maybe a little bit, and some of the hilarious, unreasonable sides of the Pokemon Sword and Shield fiasco that has been going on for the past couple of weeks. We also have a couple other stories, one about Ring Fit Adventure. We're going to dive into the Super Nintendo World, the theme park business. We have some leaked images, I believe, that detail how that's going to look like and more. So let's get into tonight's news.
Well, the wait is over. This is Nintendo DS. My body is ready.
We would like to play.
A way to make 3D games a reality. And it's called the Wii U Game Pen.
There we go, microphone's working. All right, I want to get started with a story that's not really a news story, but something I saw earlier that just made me chuckle. Parody game Ring Fat Adventure appears online. It's, of course, a spin-off of Ring Fit Adventure, the fitness ring Pilates game that Nintendo released earlier last month, maybe sometime in the middle of last month. Well, there's been a parody made of it called Ring Fat Adventure. God, I'm so excited to find out about this. Let's see. A number in the corner shows your weight growing with each bite you take, and some areas are actually restricted until you reach a certain level of pudginess. Finally, a game we can relate to. So there's definitely a swath of people out there that probably saw Ring Fit Adventure and said, you know what? I love Nintendo games. Not that Nintendo game. I don't want to get up and jump around and sweat when I play video games. This seems to be the answer to that. And it looks like you can play the game. So I'm going to try to jump in here and see what this is all about. Okay, the writing is in Japanese. Oh no. Is it all in Japanese? It looks like it is. That's okay. We're going to try anyway. I mean, being fat is a universal language, right? Eating is universal. So what do we see? For you audio listeners, you just see a very simplistic, almost 8-bit pixelated man talking to donuts. That's the music you hear in the background there. All in Japanese. I have no idea what they're saying. Oh, the donuts or people, and now he's eating the donuts. And it's all about chasing the donut people and eating them. Fantastic. Absolutely awesome. That's it. I just thought it was hilarious. I wanted to dive into that a little bit. So if you did not find Ring Fit Adventure to be your cup of tea, then Ring Fat Adventure is here for you. Not sponsored by Nintendo in any way, but if you want to get fat in style, Ring Fat Adventure. Okay. Next store I want to talk to you guys about. Nintendo's online store has gotten a redesign. I kind of went back and forth about whether or not this was something that was worth getting into, because it's not the eShop that's got the redesign. It's just a regular website. You go to store.nintendo.com and it looks a little bit different. And I took my time looking around here, and there was just one little part that I thought was actually kind of interesting. And it's that over these past couple generations, you can see that Nintendo has becoming more and more of an actual like manufacturer. Okay, well, that's not the right way. They've been selling their own merchandise way more prevalently than they have in the past. And I don't remember really a time where I went on a Nintendo store, definitely not during the Wii era, maybe a little bit in the Wii U era, where you could see things like, hey, exclusive Nintendo t-shirts being advertised and sold and shipped by Nintendo themselves. That's really cool. I mean, they have this awesome glow-in-the-dark Luigi's Mansion shirt with a Polterpup on it. awesome. They even sell Nintendo Switches straight from the website for a lower price, $259.99. Of course, that's because it's refurbished. They have amiibo, they have accessories on here. I mean, it's nothing special, of course, but I just thought it was kind of interesting that Nintendo seems to be rebranding their own stuff to be more of like a storefront, so you can buy directly from them. That's something that they've been doing more and more of. The last example that I can really remember that I thought was really cool was that when I signed up for Nintendo Switch Online back in September of 2018, and you got to get those cool NES controllers, the wireless NES controllers, so you could play the NES games on your Switch wirelessly with an NES controller, obviously. That was paid for and shipped directly from Nintendo. It's just a pattern that Nintendo seems to be going towards, and I think that's what this redesign really means. Nothing really to get into. Yeah, when you look at the comments about what people thought about the redesign, I thought it was the eShop. Most people want to see a redesign for the eShop. I also generally want to see a redesign for the eShop. I think it's, first of all, it's kind of slow. It's kind of choppy. I would rather it be a bit more optimized, and it's getting to the point where it's a little difficult to find things. Granted, when I compare the eShop to like the PlayStation Store, I like Nintendo's solution better, but storefronts, especially like the App Store, the PlayStation Store, the eShop, Xbox Live, any place that sells games, they have to deal with a lot of problems when it comes to actually sorting and sifting and trying to find high quality content. And I think Nintendo is due for an eShop redesign. I don't think we're going to get one anytime soon. Another person said, is the merchandise section new? I don't remember seeing a place to buy shirts directly from Nintendo before the update. Again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about Nintendo just being more progressive with how they sell their stuff and sell merchandise. This seems to be the new Nintendo. And speaking of the new Nintendo, we have new concept art for Super Nintendo World. It shows apparently the most detail yet. This comes from some website, piece of art. So I guess this is I don't know if this is a leak or not. It's probably not important. There are additional details in this piece of concept art that weren't very apparent in the model, namely the green hills in the background. These 2D hilly landscapes look to be blocking the view of the Mario Kart show building on one side and the view of the real world on the left side of the land. So this article goes into more detail about what you can find here, but I'm going to take a closer look at this artwork that's apparently brand spanking new, see what we can find. Oh, there's the Yoshi ride. Someone mentioned a Yoshi ride to me earlier, and I was like, okay, what is that going to be about? Can I throw Yoshi eggs at things? Doesn't look like it. It looks like there are a bunch of different colored Yoshis that are lined up almost like in a train fashion. I mean, like a ride, obviously, and you get to those are your carts. You're going to be sitting in a blue Yoshi or a red Yoshi as they march around this Super Mario Brothers landscape with all the hills and the question blocks and whatnot. It doesn't necessarily look that thrilling. Maybe that's the kids ride or the family friendly ride or something like that. Let's see if we can find other rides here in this concept art. You see a major Bowser's Castle. You got to give the team at Universal props because they really went all out. This looks like a Mario game. I could jump in here and move around, and I think that's actually going to be a major problem if they don't figure that out. The climbability of this park. There are so many hills, so many trees, so many question blocks everywhere that I do think they might have a problem with people getting overly excited, wanting to take pictures, standing next to a stack of Goombas, or running up to these little cloud structures all the way to the top, or the scariest of them all, the flagpole that's at the very tippy top of a stack of hills here that come on, you got to assume that someone is going to see that flagpole and think to themselves, okay, I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the guy who jumps up every single one of these platforms to get to the hill to take the picture. And that picture is going to be idolized and framed and spread all over the internet for years to come. But it looks fun. It looks like a pleasant place to be. It looks like a game ripped straight out of, or a world ripped straight out of the Mario franchise. The only thing that I wish I was seeing more of was other franchises, other games, other platforms. This is very heavily Mario-centric, which makes sense because Mario is the marquee. Mario is the franchise, the brand that the most people relate to. So if you want to get people to come to Super Nintendo World, even though maybe like myself personally, and maybe if you're watching this probably, there are other Nintendo franchises that you might like and enjoy personally, such as Zelda and maybe some more obscure ones like Earthbound or F-Zero, those aren't going to be the ones that are really going to bring people in. You know, a Yoshi ride is probably going to get people generally, especially a more casual audience, more excited, to bring people more into the parks than an F-Zero ride, as cool as that sounds. And I feel like they could probably do a really cool job with the F-Zero ride. I'm wondering what type of interactions we can expect from Super Nintendo World. So I'm a huge theme park person, so that's probably, I'm geeking out over this thing. I'm so excited, so stoked to visit Universal Orlando when they finally bring that over here. Because of course all of this, as far as we know, is happening in Universal Japan first, and that's going to open first. I don't know if it's going to be an exact replica. I'm not that well read on it in Universal Japan and the other places, but I'm a huge theme park nerd, and I don't know what they're going to do with interactivity, because they have all of these piranha plants. They have like little time clocks that you can get in Mario Worlds. They have power blocks. They have question blocks, etc., etc. They have these the stone things that say and land on the ground. Man, I'm making a fool of myself now, not remembering their names, but you get what I'm saying, right? They have so much going on here that I just hope it's filled with like these little moments where something moves or something triggers, or maybe you can like grab a coin, or I don't know. I'm excited to see what about this just takes it from an exciting diorama into like a world that you get into. Something that Disney's been really good at doing over the years, and they successfully did with the Harry Potter stuff in Universal. I hope to see and to find out more about what they're going to do with Nintendo. Oh, I didn't even notice the fact that up front here, it looks like the entrance is Peach's Castle. I don't know if you're going to get a lot of interactivity or rides in there, because it looks like it's just an entrance. The focus seems to be on everything else, but there's a lot going on here. If you like Mario, you're probably going to love Super Nintendo World. Yep, new concept art. So what are people saying about Super Nintendo World, specifically this concept art? Looks like Mario level designers work very closely with the architect. I totally agree. Puzzled accounts. Matt Notice says, I'm still salty about not being able to ride Yoshi like the Tron ride at Disneyland Shanghai and Pony Express at Knott's Berry Farm. Granted, I wouldn't expect it to be that fast, but riding inside a Yoshi just doesn't have the same spark. So it seems like they wanted to ride on top of a Yoshi, which seems to make a lot more sense, actually, because that's what Mario does. He sits on Yoshi's back, and Yoshi goes, and Yoshi jumps, and that might have been a really cool ride. But like he mentioned, and also like I mentioned earlier, it seems like the Yoshi ride is the family-friendly one, so they wanted to take it easy. When we looked at the picture, it looked like the Yoshi carts could fit multiple people in them, so I don't think that we're going to get anything near as exciting as what he was referencing there. And then another commenter said, I assumed they'd use Peach's Castle since it's so iconic. Yep, that's pretty much taking a page out of the Disney playbook. They have a super iconic, big, imposing castle. Why not use it? Especially Peach's Castle, which I know at the very least a lot of gamers are very familiar with. A lot of Mario faithful and Nintendo faithful are very, very intimately familiar with Peach's Castle. I wouldn't necessarily think that the casual public is. They probably would just see that as a pretty pink castle. Thank you for indulging my excitement and passion for Super Nintendo World. I know it isn't necessarily about the games, but we're about to get into the games. Now, this is like the main thing, what I titled the show about. This is some of the Pokemon news I wanted to get into. We talked a lot about Pokemon yesterday. We talked even more about Pokemon the day before. It's Pokemon Central these days, because Pokemon Sword and Shield, the review embargo lifted yesterday, and the game releases tomorrow. In fact, depending on where you live, you might be able to play it today when it goes live. I think at 12 p.m. Eastern is usually when it hits the servers. So if you live on the west coast of the US, you'll be playing Pokemon tonight. If you stay up late, you'll be playing Pokemon tonight. Pokemon Sword and Shield is going to be in people's hands, and that's probably why there's been so much Pokemon news. And now we're going to see the extremes of Pokemon for you. Here's the first story. Pokemon Sword and Shield haters are asking Trump to halt sales of the game. I read this, and again, I thought this is way too funny. Like, I have to talk about it. Here is the full appeal, as the article states, to our president, the president of the United States. We, the people of the United States of America, strive for quality goods and entertainment. We, the people of the United States, want what is best for our children. We, the people of the United States, want what is best in our stores. President Trump and Congress, the newest Pokemon games by Game Freak and Nintendo are negatively impacting the market with questionable decisions. We believe if the sales of the games were to stop, it will wake up Game Freak and we'll get quality back. This will set a bad standard in the markets if these were to get sold. We, as both Pokemon fans, but more importantly, American citizens, believe this is violating our market rights and need something done about this. Two things that I think are really funny about this. One, Game Freak and Nintendo are not American companies. Game Freak is not a developer who operates in America. So first of all, appealing to the American marketplace and to the American Congress to kind of regulate a company who doesn't even operate necessarily wholly, or at least centrally in their zone, is, I think, is kind of humorous. And the second thing is, this will set a bad standard in the markets if these were to get sold. I like that especially because, yeah, it's not like the standard has been set by other companies and other game developers in the past who have done questionable things. Game Freak and Nintendo are the first people to do it. I think all of this is super duper funny. I'm getting a kick out of it. In a time period where it seems like there are a lot of people divided, the fan base seems to be going back and forth. There's a lot of people getting upset over the hot takes that are being taken, the criticisms. I mean, again, like, no matter where you are, if someone's talking about Pokemon Sword and Shield, they're almost certainly going to take an extreme side at this point. Either you're going to get really upset about what Game Freak is doing, or you're going to get upset about the people who are getting upset. I mean, crawling on Twitter yesterday, I just saw so many takes from so many people. Some people like poking fun at all the fan base, the parts of the fan base that were getting upset about the criticisms being hurled at Pokemon Sword and Shield. There were ads for Pokemon Sword and Shield scrolling in my Twitter as well. It's just nuts. It's a crazy time to be a Pokemon fan. It's a crazy time to own a Nintendo Switch. And I love this little moment of levity. Whoever made this, like, bravo, because this is just really funny. It brought a smile to my face in a time period where darkness seems to be roaming the lands of Pokemon. The White House needs 99,000 or 99 extra, so I'm assuming they need 100,000 signatures by December 12th to get a response. It currently has 193. Okay, like, I don't necessarily agree with this, if I'm being serious for a second, but at the same time, I think this is just so hilariously worded that it deserves a little bit more love than 193. All right, what are people saying about it? Oh, this is funny, I have to admit. What if this actually gets enough signatures? Haha. See, corruption is why our government won't act, lol. Great. So it seems like people are taking this the way I'm taking this too, which is, okay, this isn't a serious thing. We're just trying to have a good time. Now let's go to the reasonable side of Pokemon Sword and Shield. If you checked out the show yesterday, we talked a whole lot about this idea that was spreading around the interwebs, which was Game Freak lied, or did Game Freak lie about their game? And it goes back to statements that Game Freak made in July, I believe, about some of the reasoning they were trying to give for not having all of the Pokemon be brought back into Pokemon Sword and Shield. And at some point they said that they were going to have to redo all of the 3D models in Sword and Shield. And so that is going to make the amount of work to bring all the Pokemon over that much more difficult. That wasn't the only reason that they gave, but that was one of the reasons. And since then, since the game has been introduced into people's hands and people have been playing Pokemon Sword and Shield, it was noted yesterday, and we talked about it in yesterday's show, that the models look almost exactly identical. At least some of the models seem to be looking, when you look at the raw polygons, the triangle count of the 3D structures in Pokemon Sword and Shield of the Pokemon, like we looked at a Bulbasaur and a few others, I'm forgetting exactly which ones. They look eerily similar. It looks like they were ripped directly from that game, from older games. I think they were referencing Sun and Moon, obviously, because that's the most recent Pokemon generation. They were ripped from Sun and Moon and brought straight into Sword and Shield. And I think a little bit, I tried to play devil's advocate a tiny bit, even though I generally agreed with the consensus that this doesn't look great. This isn't a good look for Game Freak. I wish they were being a bit better with their communication, because it doesn't seem like a good look. The consensus seemed to be that people didn't like this, and I tried to play devil's advocate a little bit yesterday and say, well, there could obviously always be some hidden engineering reasons, and we have a reasonable response. Someone by the name of Roynerer, hopefully I got that right, on Reddit, posted this thread on the Nintendo Switch subreddit that's called an observational case for the developers of Pokemon Sword and Shield. basically taking this approach of trying to look at the engineering side of things and give a more reasonable take on the matter. And I wanted to talk about this because I wanted to give you guys a 360 perspective. I didn't want to just present the side that I presented yesterday without also making sure that we saw that there could be some reasonability to what Game Freak was going through and why they said what they said. And maybe they didn't actually lie directly. Maybe it just kind of looks that way to the casual layman. So I'm going to read this little segment of the post. This is basically a question of backwards compatibility. Will the new hardware and software on the Switch be backwards compatible with the old assets from X and Y? Okay, so I said Sun and Moon earlier. It could have been X and Y. Whenever you migrate to a new platform, for example, moving from the 3DS to the Switch, there is a very good chance that the stuff that worked on the old platform will no longer work without a ton of work on the new. It might be because the new hardware handles shaders or normal maps completely differently than others. It might be because the Switch uses different hardware for lighting calculations than 3DS. It might be, and they go on to give other reasons for why this is happening, basically citing that backwards compatibility, the fact that the Switch is a different piece of hardware than the 3DS, does not necessarily mean you can rip the models out of the 3DS, plug them onto the Switch, and have them work flawlessly in all the ways that you might expect these models to work. Now, can they look pretty close to the same? Like, can you take a Bulbasaur model from X and Y or Sun and Moon, bring it over to Pokemon Sword and Shield and have it look like Bulbasaur? Yes, but what this guy brings up, which is a really good point, is that doesn't mean the shaders are going to work correctly. That doesn't mean it's going to animate the right way on a brand new piece of hardware. It doesn't mean that the lighting is going to work as expected. There are a lot of engineering hurdles which could keep these models, I should say, because we don't have a direct response from Game Freak. We literally don't know. This is speculation, but it could keep Game Freak from wanting to take every single model over because it actually does require extra work, meaning that Game Freak wasn't lying. They didn't have to completely redo the models in that sense, but they did have to change a lot of settings on the models, maybe redo portions of the modeling process to make sure that these Pokemon made it into Sword and Shield. I am by no means excusing their design decision not to have all the Pokemon in there. I'm not trying to take a side either way. My whole point with this was just to play devil's advocate some more and point out that, yes, even though the models were being brought over, or at least they looked like they were being brought over polygon for polygon, triangle for triangle from older generations of Pokemon, that did not imply that that was a zero work process. There probably was some work, and by Game Freak's own messaging, a lot of work. That's what they're claiming. That was a lot of work. And I'm not going to immediately assume that they're lying just because of some pictures that we've seen. Is it a good look for them? No, I don't think so. Is it the best way to communicate it? Again, no. Is it a good design decision that they did this? Questionable. Some people are going to say no. Some people are going to say absolutely yes. But were they lying necessarily about it being a lot of work to bring these models over? I don't think that can be a conclusive yes. In fact, it seems like if we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, we should say no. And let's finish today's show with a just lighthearted piece of questioning, I would say, that I have for you guys. Will you be picking up Sword and Shield this Friday? Again, this was another Reddit post that I saw that I thought, okay, that's a really fun conversation. I want to bring that up on the show. I want to talk to you guys about. I will be getting Pokemon Sword specifically. In fact, I already bought it. It's already pre-downloaded on the Switch just because I want to know what this game's about. Honestly, I'm fascinated by it. I've been with the Pokemon franchise since the beginning. Pokemon Blue, that was actually one of the first games that I've ever owned. Like one of the first games that I was ever personally mine as a kid. It was Pokemon Blue. So I have that nostalgic factor to it. I do have that love and excitement and passion for the Pokemon franchise. I will be picking up the game, but I am really curious after all of this news, after a pretty negative summer for the Pokemon Company and for Game Freak, what the general pulse of the fan base seems to be, which is why I wanted to touch on this real quick before we ended out the show. And it seems like the general consensus among the people on this Reddit thread is no. Now, let me state this very clearly right away. There's a big caveat here, a big asterisk. This Reddit thread and Reddit in general does not represent the general public, does not represent the general Pokemon fan base, does not represent the general Switch owner. there are so many more people out there. Just like when you go on Reddit or you go on major forums or websites, it seems like games like Call of Duty get a whole ton of hate, but then they sell millions and millions of copies anyway. That's because there are so many people out there that love and play video games that have no idea that conversations like this are happening, or they don't participate in these type of conversations. So let me preface all of this with that notation that I am looking into this because I'm curious, but I know that's not a full representation of everyone. So this person says, I was going to, but I don't know because I'm still playing Luigi's Mansion 3 and want to finish that before I start something new. I agree. Luigi's Mansion 3 is a phenomenal game. I thought I had a ton of fun with it. I didn't expect the leap in terms of how good it is or how much better it is than other Luigi's Mansion games. It really, I think, fulfilled the promise of the premise of what Luigi's Mansion is all about in a way that I can't even think where they might go. Like, what's the next step for Luigi's Mansion? This seems like the Luigi's Mansion. I don't even know what a Luigi's Mansion 4 would look like. So if you're still into it, or if you're interested in Luigi's Mansion 3, that's a pretty good reason not to be picking up Pokemon Sword and Shield. No, not I. Picked up Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Three Houses last night, my late gaming purchase of the year. Both awesome choices, and both two choices that are going to last you probably to the end of the year. There's just so much replayability with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Three Houses also a lot of replayability if you want to get all of the storylines in that game. So phenomenal choices. Don't have any qualms with that. This guy says, was planning to, but am now most likely going to hold off to see user impressions of the game. May hold out to get it used, though I also may choose to skip these games entirely depending how I feel about them weeks or even months from now. Okay, all right. I mean, this actually, or at least this person seems to be affected or impacted by the conversations that have been happening over the past few months, that they are willing to kind of take a step back. They're willing to see what people think about it, what the general public thinks about it before they buy the game. Let's go at one more. No, I wouldn't say I would. Actually, let's just do like a quick rundown. No, absolutely not. I'll wait. I'm not. Wow, that's a lot of no. I haven't seen a single yes yet. No. Here we go. We gotta go all the way down. Yep, my son wants it for Christmas. He's 6. So we have a confirmation that a 6-year-old wants it. Nope. I passed on it. I'm done with Pokemon after Sun and Moon. Can't justify spending 90 Canadian dollars on a Pokemon game. And now we finally have one person who's saying yes, and they're getting it for themselves. I'm genuinely surprised. I had to go down pretty low on this thread to find someone to say yes. Wow. Okay. Again, I would be shocked if this actually had an impact on the general sales of Pokemon Sword and Shield. The Switch is hot right now. There's no reason to believe that Sword and Shield will sell any less than its predecessors will. In fact, it should do more, I think. And that's exactly what I expected to do. But I am curious now to see if any of this controversy actually impacts the sales of Sword and Shield. But with that, I mean, we're kind of rounding up now. I'm curious what you guys think too. Do you think, or rather, are you going to purchase Sword and Shield? Has any of this news affected you in a major way? Do you care about the controversies? And even if you do care, are you going to buy the game? Why or why not? Let me know. You can comment again on the YouTube channel. That has wrapped up tonight's episode of the Nightly Nintendo Show. Thank you so much for joining me. You can watch the show again every weekday night, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, except usually Wednesdays is 8 p.m. Eastern. The schedule is on the Twitch homepage. That's twitch.tv/NightlyNintendo. Or you can watch it after the fact at your leisure, whatever you would like. You don't have to necessarily participate in the conversations at my YouTube channel, which is YouTube channel Heart Containers, or just search Nightly Nintendo News, as well as on podcasting services like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, the whole 9 yards. Pretty much every major podcasting service, Nightly Nintendo Show is on it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope all you guys have a fantastic night.